moving along. We need to keep factoring. So the numerator of E can be factored using AC method or guess and check. You'd ask what two factors of -5 add up to +4, and that is a +5 and a -1. And on the denominator, you'd say, well, I can factor out a common factor of 5, which would leave you with also an x minus 1. Now, the second fraction, which has a 5x on top and an x plus 5 on the bottom, does not factor at all. So then, once everything is factored, you can start looking for common factors to cancel. Notice there is a common factor of x minus 1 on the top and the bottom that can be canceled, and a common factor of, let's see, x plus 5 on the top and the bottom, which can be canceled, and one more thing, a common factor of 5 on the top and the bottom, which can be canceled, which leaves us with only an x, and it's on the top too, so we can write it as just an x as our final answer. Remember, had the x been on the bottom of the fraction, we'd have to leave it on the bottom of the fraction. Moving along to F, it's just even more factoring as we go along. So this is going to be always the key, is remembering how to factor. The only piece that can't be factored is the 6x because it's just one term. There's no pluses or minuses, so there's no way to factor that. We don't even need to worry about that one. But the numerator of the first fraction is a difference of 2 squares. It can be factored as x plus 5 and x minus 5. The denominator of the first fraction, we can factor out a 3, which will leave us with x plus 2. Let's see. The top of the second fraction is, again, AC method. You'd be looking for what two factors of -2 add up to. It's kind of hidden. A +1. And that would be a +2 and a -1. So it would factor as x plus 2 and x minus 1. And the denominator of that middle fraction factors out because it's a GCF, or greatest common factor of 2, which would leave you with x minus 5. Now, the denominator of the last fraction does factor, but you have to be careful. Notice, before you do anything, there is a greatest common factor of 3 that you can factor out first, which would leave you with x squared minus 6x plus 5. Then you want to make sure that you can do AC method on what's remaining, or your trial and error. So, but make sure that you don't lose the 3. Let's go ahead and put that 3 there. Now the x squared minus 6x plus 5, you would need what two factors of 5 add up to -6 in the middle? Well, that would be a -5 and a -1, so that would factor as x minus 5 and x minus 1. Now you are completely factored, then you would want to start canceling as much as you can. So notice that there is a common factor of x minus 5 on the top and the bottom that can be canceled. Notice that there is a common factor of x plus 2 on the top and the bottom that can be canceled. There's also a common factor of x minus 1 on the top and the bottom that can be canceled. And lastly, there is a 3 and a 6. So 3 and 6 are both divisible by 3. That'll leave us with a 1 and a 2. Almost done. One last thing is we still have a 2 on top and a 2 on the bottom, so we can divide those both by 2, and that'll leave us with 2 1s, 1 on top and 1 on the bottom. So let's see what this leaves us with as our final answer. Notice on top we have an x and an x plus 5. On the bottom we have a 3 and an x minus 5. Notice we have to write the parentheses around the x plus 5 and the x minus 5 because they are not by themselves on the top and the bottom. If you wanted to do anything, you could distribute the x on top and distribute the 3 on the bottom, but that is not necessary. You can leave your answer as is. Let's look at the last one, G. Notice on G, they've actually done the hard part for us. They've actually done all the factoring. So don't foil. They've done the hard part. All we get to do is we get to just jump to the canceling because they took care of the factoring. So notice there's an x plus 3 we can cancel out from the top and the bottom. There's an x minus 4 we can cancel out from the top and the bottom. There's, let's see, an x minus 6 that we can cancel out from the top and the bottom, which leaves us with our final answer of x plus 5 and x plus 2. And look, we are done. The last thing that we're going to talk about